This video contains spoilers for Resident Evil 9, so watch at your own discretion.
This place. Raccoon City was where it all began for me. When it all happened, I couldn't make a difference. So I am here now.
Admitting this while sitting in the ruins of the place that defined his career and continues to break his body down nearly 30 years later feels darkly poetic. Leon returning to a city that long since is reduced to ash mirrors his own scars. The hollow remains of Raccoon City feels like an extension of everything he lost that night and everything he's carried since. It's as if the city itself is forcing him to confront his failures, just as much as it reminds us of who he used to be. That slow, reluctant breath before he pushes open the RPD's front doors. Hearing Lieutenant Brana's voice echo in his memory. Seeing the worn-out welcome sign. And then remembering the faces he couldn't save like Kendo all comes crashing back. You see, for us, it's easy to feel that wave of nostalgia. Those callbacks, those significant moments. But this isn't just us returning to a nostalgic landmark or reliving classic moments. It's about closure. The culmination of decades of battles, lessons, and pain. Even reaching this part in Resident Evil 9, it's a challenge that's fairly routine for Leon now. Defeating the giant spider, cutting through waves of the infected, some alarmingly aware, using motors, chainsaws, and guns, or racing down a highway on his motorcycle with Victor Gideon launching rockets behind him. It sounds insane, and it is, but that's precisely the point. You reach these highs so you can truly feel the emotional lows, and remember that we're taking control of someone who wasn't always like this. He wasn't always armed to the teeth, swinging a hatchet at bioweapons or mowing down hordes in search of a better arsenal. He was once scared, powerless, but his determination led him through. And that story, that transformation started decades ago. Before the government badges, before the scars and impossible missions, there was just a young officer reporting for his first day on the job. No plan, no backup, just good intentions and a heart that hadn't yet hardened to the world. Resident Evil 2 to Resident Evil 9 in universe spans roughly 28 years of Leon Kennedy's life. Almost 3 full decades of non-stop crises. At the same time, Resident Evil as a series is celebrating its 30th anniversary in 2026, which means Leon's story has technically grown up alongside the franchise itself. A franchise that was revived with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, pushing harder into horror with a first-person perspective. Then Village and the remakes layered on top of that came to mix old-school atmosphere with modern design. Together, RE7, RE8, RE2, and RE3 remakes all comes together to pull in longtime fans and total newcomers in a redefined canon that presents itself in Resident Evil 9. For a series this established, with dense lore, iconic characters, and a legacy that's still growing, trying to push the brand forward with new faces and new ideas while making what's already established still somehow work isn't particularly easy. And we can see that with some of the characters themselves and their stories. Ethan Winters was criticized for being a blank slate, a guy with almost no visible personality compared to Leon, Jill, or Chris. But that blank slate is exactly what the series needed to reset itself after Resident Evil 6 turned almost every major character into an action hero. Resident Evil 7 and 8 let the franchise relearn how to be scary again, and it makes sense by placing us within the shoes of someone who's completely out of their depths here, who's re-experiencing this terror and trauma through a medium that is artistically and narratively evolved. So while demands for icons like Jill and Leon are completely understandable, the setup has to be done right, and even then, the setting has to carry some sort of weight. Raccoon City delivers on both. It not only circles back to ground zero, literally, but the heart of Leon, the origins of the place where, as he said himself, he couldn't make a difference. Before we tackle Raccoon City, let's look at how Leon is before having to face his own past.
Leon Kennedy. Yes, so. What does Victor want with you? Grace. He grabbed you for a reason.
To start off, we have to look at where Leon is within the story of Resident Evil 9 at the beginning of the game. We find him at a crime scene analyzing the marks on a dead body, someone who survived the Raccoon City incident over 28 years ago. This marks the number 6 of Raccoon City survivors, all dead from the same thing. As Leon is leaving the crime scene, his team identifies Victor Gideon as a person of interest surrounding these mysterious deaths. Victor has ties to Umbrella and was a former T-Virus researcher. And as Leon is getting enough information on Victor and preparing on where to go next, Sherry Birkin hands over information of a missing police officer that came up. Now, the reason why that's even brought up to Leon's attention to begin with is that this police officer was reported missing where the fifth body was found. This then detours Leon to head to where the missing police officer was last seen, and while he's stuck in traffic, he witnesses Victor, the man he just heard about a moment before, walking out into the street with an unconscious Grace slumped over his shoulder. This kicks off the hunt for Victor Gideon, and a proper presentation of Leon's physical capabilities honed in over the years. Serving as a skilled operative for the Division of Security Operations, taking care of bioweapons has been his expertise for roughly 12 or so years now, since the events of Resident Evil 6. And it shows here. He's completely calm and handling all of the newly infected people walking down the street with ease. With a big reveal here actually being at the end by him showing off his hand, telling us he too's running out of time. Pressure's mounting and he needs to find answers, but even then it's a narrative tie-in, because for Leon this doesn't appear to have an overwhelming impact on how he acts, at least not immediately. Even in the following scene as he appears at the care center that Victor purchased some time ago to continue his own research, Leon is aware of being watched, has some kind of idea of what's going on here, and may even hope to find answers of his own ailments. Yet outwardly he's still calm. As the care center goes on lockdown and infected people begin to roam the halls and attack the non-infected, he continues to deliver one-liners, appears to be in control of himself all throughout this entire section. Even later when Victor has him tied up, he doesn't break. From a gameplay and tonal perspective, it works as a phenomenal contrast to Grace's terror and complete lack of control in any situation she finds herself in. But it also serves well in showing us how jaded and experienced Leon is. Let's not forget, he was purposely infected with the Las Plagas parasite in Resident Evil 4, going so far as to completely sacrifice himself in the name of succeeding at his mission and keeping Ashley safe. That timeline shows us a rapid progression within the story. The parasite was slowly latching onto his nervous system until his brain was compromised when the parasite hit a certain point of maturity, at which point it was too late to hope in a cure. Here, it is different to a point. With Resident Evil 4, Leon is racing to remove a foreign parasite before he loses control and becomes a ganado. While in Resident Evil 9, there is no mounting pressure of going against a soon-to-be mature parasite. Rather, he's managing a late-stage illness where the end is death due to past exposure. Exposure dating all the way back to his origin story. If we also contrast both these stories, he goes from a protector in an early part within his career with Ashley to now being a grizzled veteran carrying a deadly virus, with eventually learning his hopes of finding a cure is actually tied closely to Grace, who also falls under Leon's protection. Something that works quite well to push the narrative forward in a way that's tied to Leon's own nature, history working for DSO, and now learning what's wrong with him and how Victor Gideon plays into all of this. When Leon discovers the blotches he's exhibiting on his hands and neck confirm a T-virus infection, I'd argue it's the first time we see any type of pause or emotional hurdle.
Sherry, you're killing me.
I found some information about our illness. Our symptoms confirm a T-virus infection.
Oh, fuck. Well, hey, at least we're in it together, right?
It's not much, but just enough to add some depth to his character beyond this unstoppable force he had proven to be up until the point of this discovery. Had the game continued in this vein, which it does for about another hour or so, Leon's story would have continued to work as nothing more than an old, highly skilled agent with no other stakes besides having to identify a cure for himself and Sherry. Did Leon need any more stakes besides that? Well, given as the story progresses, his body does begin to degrade with the progression of the illness, objectively speaking, then no. But had that been the only vulnerability, it would have served as that's the only thing stopping or slowing Leon down. And as we established at the beginning of this video, with a series this long established while continuing to try to build a depth and continuity over time, tying this all the way back to Raccoon City isn't just a return to the origins of a character, but fundamentally recenters the narrative in a way that also returns Leon to his roots, exposing a vulnerability that otherwise would have been nigh on impossible given the position and continuous growth this character has been given over time, which I personally think was a great move. While I love the action sequences and just the overall badass Leon is within the story, having that emotional vulnerability is exactly what he needed for him to be given more character depth, which is lacking into the second half of the game when Resident Evil Requiem becomes essentially Leon's game and thus Leon's story, which I think now is about the best time to discuss his takeover and returning home.
Hey, Lieutenant Brenner. Kennedy, reporting for duty.
From his old Jeep still visible at the gas station to the very intentional shot of the destroyed Welcome to Raccoon City sign, Easter eggs meant to get those more eagle-eyed and loyal fans overjoyed with excitement and nostalgia. It's also a parallel to how far Leon has come. Driving a regular Jeep on the night he was in way over his head to now driving a Porsche, something that's nothing more than a nice little perk for the expertise he now has. But the thing is, the rest of this portion of Raccoon City is more of Leon doubling down on his skill set, beginning with taking care of a giant spider, its babies, and then from there, the game goes on to actively encourage combat, rating your score and directly contributing to Leon's ability to gain access to stronger firepower as a reward from you refusing to shy away from avoiding it. It's a challenge Grace never could have risen to, and it's not clear if anyone else could have either. This contrast is important because it reminds us that not everyone can handle zombies that look almost harmless but can easily overwhelm you through sheer numbers, limited resources, and no clean shot to the head to finally put them down. If you really want to stretch it, you can even lean into a sort of in-game headcanon. The more of these zombies that have been laying dormant under dust and rubble for 28 years, the more the game quote-unquote rewards you for putting them down. Not just as a gameplay loop, but as a quiet metaphor. Every corpse Leon finally lays to rest feels like him trying to make some sort of amends for the people he couldn't save so long ago. To be fair, that is a bit in the extreme way of thinking about it, but the point here being the action is kicked up to 11. You're encouraged to go as deep into it as possible, and Leon eventually comes across zombies that have some sort of mental faculty still working enough to operate firearms, motors, and chainsaws. The discovery of the dead BSAA soldiers wiped out in a matter of seconds by a single person that was impossible for them to identify in the middle of his attack serves as a means to tie in further to what exactly Opus is, how it's been sought after even before Leon's discovery of it, and how it's connected to his search for a cure. Now, considering Xeno was only just introduced prior to this, his reveal of killing the BSAA agents deepens the mystery and does, of course, go on to add to the unfortunate feelings of never getting to properly fight him. But from a character perspective for Leon, this is what I would consider the near point of his apex of being this unstoppable force. Once he collects all the parts of the detonators, and for the more aggressive players wanting to enjoy the full beauty of Resident Evil 9's gore system, continuing to explore this part of Raccoon City and racking up all of those kills and opening up every single one of those BSAA containers, the next step is riding a motorcycle down the dust-covered remains of the destroyed main highway, giving us a better view of what remains of the city after the missile hit it. At the same time, Leon is ambushed by Gideon with a rocket launcher while a pack of Garmer aggressively chase after him. Now, this whole section's nothing more than an on-rails driving sequence to give a proper explanation as to how Leon eventually reaches the center of Raccoon City. And however you feel about it, I think it falls on the individual person and their taste on whether they prefer the more horror-focused or action-heavy set pieces within the series. For me, well, I know it's not the point, as there really isn't much to do here beyond just shooting. I've actually replayed this section a few times just to get a better look at the remains of Raccoon City, really taking in how Capcom has come to depict the remains of what is the focus point of their whole series. How they managed to portray such an iconic place after so much time has passed, with the added details of more and more destroyed, broken, and hollowed out buildings popping up as you get closer to your destination, which is closer to where the missile struck. It does manage to poke the hole of how the hell did so much of the Raccoon City Police Department manage to stay in as much tact as it did, giving credence to, yes, maybe this was just nostalgia bait. And honestly, I would have said the same thing, yes, unmistakably, had it not been for the absolutely wonderful scene we get of Leon walking up to the front door.
It's on you now.
A slow, deep breath before opening the front door, remembering the deaths of Elliot, hearing Lieutenant Branagh tell him, "It's all on you now," just as dust falls off the front doors. If there was ever a clear moment of what exactly is going through Leon's head and why we had to revisit this place, it's this right here. Apart from revisiting that line of no matter what he couldn't make a difference, this place was where his career as a police officer was meant to take off. The place in the original story he wanted to be due to his personal interest with the mysterious deaths in the surrounding Arklay Mountains. And when he finally did show up, wishing he came sooner to help despite being told to stay away. That day he went around and learned of the wonderful plans his fellow officers had in store to welcome Leon to their department. Celebrations meant to get him to learn his fellow officers' names and enjoying beers, food, and soda for those more alcohol conscious. It was a joyous occasion meant to solidify camaraderie, It's now forever marked with the horrors, unpreparedness, and overall inexperience he had that night. If you head inside the West Office where his old desk was located and walk up to Lieutenant Brana's name tag, you hear this voice line.
Hey, Lieutenant Brana. Kennedy. Reporting for duty.
Leon paying respect to his long-dead lieutenant, and perhaps even a quiet acknowledgement that he is finally ready. He knows what he's doing, and he's no longer that wide-eyed rookie Brana met a quarter of a decade ago. This is only one round of failure, though. He wasn't able to save his brothers in blue, and Zeno, Gideon, or perhaps both of them knew well enough to place that welcome sign alongside a note taunting him that he can't save anyone. He failed them, and Grace will soon be an echo of that. If we fast forward just a little bit, to Leon standing outside of Kendo's gun shop where he remembered vividly the father angrily responding to the word terminate in regards to his daughter who was in the middle of turning. Leon is haunted by Kendo's emotional demand of some kind of answer, some sort of explanation behind why they allowed this to happen, and despite Leon being there claiming to help, he is of no help. What could he realistically do? The man was protecting his daughter who was on the brink of being a major threat to all of them, and all Kendo asked was for a little privacy. Privacy ending with putting his daughter and himself down.
Just go. Just give us some privacy.
I'm so sorry. Never again.
Lieutenant Brana's words of "it's on you now." It's a little deeper now because here we're the only round of civilians apart from Claire and Sherry he ran into that night. And it was immediately after he escaped as a sole surviving police officer. Not to say he rightfully carried that burden, but he has to feel some sense of responsibility for it to some degree. Even having those words out of everything else Brana said that night be the ones repeated gives that picture. Leon's heartfelt apology, followed by the rumble of Mr. X's return and him saying never again. As his voice strengthens, the tying in that final knot is complete. After all of these years, even these two small chinks within his armor works enough to rehumanize him, to recenter him, and redefine his purpose. Because of these two scenes, followed by his admission to Grace within the ARC facility that I showcased at the beginning of this video, we get enough to understand what this all means to him. At the RPD station, amid more open areas, Easter eggs, and be filled with more callbacks, I think nobody would have seen those as bad moves. Hell, it would have been nothing but great. However, if even one more room was brought back in its entirety with a mound of old callbacks to the series' roots but came at the cost of these two scenes, personally speaking, then I would call it nostalgia bait. But Leon, a stronger foundation through these cutscenes, and his better health at the end of the game all comes off that much stronger because of it. So I don't think any of this was a nostalgia bait per se, at least not purely for the sake of having it. Rather, a crucial piece needed to reintroduce Leon and bring the new audience along properly, just as RE7 needed its more heavy horror resets, and I'm all the happier for it.